Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. Thank you for being here. Happy Wednesday evening to you. The Weekend Warriors, it's right around the corner. You know that. It's close. It is close. Good to see everybody. Good to be here. And as the tale goes, our favorite, or your favorite and mine, Mr. Chris McDonough, aka McFluff himself. How are you, Chris?
Josh, que paso, amigo? How are you, buddy?
Nada mucho, hombre. How are you?
You know, that's about as far as my Spanish goes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing great, but I appreciate you. Thanks for the invite, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We'd been talking about certain, cases and stuff for a while, and going back, there was it was a really older stream that you did, and I can't remember the name of the person that was there, but they had a picture of Leticia on your stream on their avatar, if you remember that.
99 balloons.
Right there it is, 99 balloons.
And hi, everybody. Great to see everybody here tonight.
Yeah, so and you said, I remember you said, where'd you get that? I remember thinking, I didn't even know who that was, and then you brought it up, and I didn't know that was your first case that you'd ever worked. But we'll get into all that here in a minute. How have you been?
Been doing great. We're feeling 100%. Knock on wood, right? That we got another breath of life here. I do have, I did it over the week. I did lose a good friend to COVID. And so, it just, again, you just kind of pinch yourself and say, okay, let's live the day for the day. So we're doing great though. Both Karen and I and Dylan have recovered fully. And we're headed forward.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. It's just a terrible thing. It seems like, everybody's been affected, in this new strain that has been going around has just, really re-upped the whole thing again. And it's been tough. And so, prayers to everybody out there who's battling and fighting it. And prayers to everybody else who is, ducking it and avoiding it the best we can, but like you said, I'm glad that you guys all did fine and got through it, because you just never know how one's going to react. It's one of those tough situations. But see, you live a much different life than most people too. I mean, you've had this thing a couple times, and you travel around and meet people and talk to people. Plus, you're also from the era that you're a face-to-face guy. That's what you guys do.
Yeah, and I'm wired that way. My personality is, I've got to talk to people. I'm a little old school in that route. And hey, by the way, if I lose you, it's not you. It's my Wi-Fi, because I'm back here in the Airstream.
Yeah,
back in my office. So if I lose you, I'll come right back.
No problem. Is that the old, it's not you, it's me?
To a different, yeah.
I totally understand. Hey,
okay.
People are just happy. We're just happy that you're here. And, we'll improvise as always.
Yeah.
So, let's just dive into it. You spent most of your time in homicide down in Oceanside, correct? I think that's correct. I think he is having Wi-Fi problems at the moment, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm back.
He's back.
I hope this is not a signal, because what's really interesting, Josh, is every time I try to do this from here right now, that happens. So that's why I end up out in the truck. So anyway,
Yeah.
I apologize. So hit me with the question.
No problem. So you spent your time down in Oceanside working homicide, and this specific case that we were going to dive into a little bit tonight. This was your first, correct? He's working, guys. It's all right. We're getting the Wi-Fi's. Hey, Dilsh, we're having a Wi-Fi issue. I think the Aurora Borealis is really interfering here, guys.
We're going 5G. Stand by. We're gonna
No
go on my hotspot. Stand by.
Hey, Dilsh, hit the hotspot.
I apologize again.
Don't be sorry.
My old partner just texted me. My old partner just texted me and said, "Hey, knucklehead, get it together." See, and now I just said, "Okay, hang on." Anyway, keep talking. This is your show. I'm just here.
Oh no, absolutely. It is, but I can keep talking, but I'm asking questions. So I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna ask the question, and then I'm gonna answer the question, and then we'll go back.
That will work. That will work.
So hey, Chris. You worked in Oceanside. Yes, Josh, I did. Any more questions?
Correct, Josh. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if that was your question, you answered it. So that was good.
Well,
yeah.
We might as well just
32 miles north of the border from San Ysidro. We were the last city north and the first city coming south from Orange County in LA.
Yeah. Well, and when I started, looking, I mean, you had said in the past how crazy it was there. You referred to it literally as the Wild West. And I, that wasn't really my time. I was a young kid, so I don't know that much. I don't know that much about it, but I went to do this piece on Leticia Hernandez. And all of a sudden, when I typed her name in, a slew of just each story worse than the next, okay, and more tragic than the next. And I'm going, and this is starting in like 1975, 1974 in the video that I did. And we'll play that at the end, but it was staggering to say the least. And then it was a list basically that ended up, with Leticia at the forefront of this. And so I started digging. And the things that you guys had to go through dealing with these abductions, and there were a substantial amount of abductions, which is another thing. And, we could kind of dovetail here with the, abductions. I mean, abductions. You've studied them. You've hunted these people down, and but this is what real abductions. These, and it being so close to the Mexico border, Tijuana. You guys were probably just every day you wake up and it was something new, right? I mean, was that basically how it was going?
Yeah, I mean, there was never the San Diego County as a whole, there's never really a lot of lag for something to go on, right? And so that 32 miles from the border to us and everything in between that, there are millions and millions of people, right? I think San Diego, what are they up to? Like 2 million now?
Something like it. It's when I was researching, it said it was like the fourth largest city.
Yeah,
in the United States. I mean, it's big.
Right. And then so you have the Navy down in San Diego and the Marines, the 1st Marine Division out of Camp Pendleton. So, that's one of the largest military installations in the country.
Mhm.
And with that, comes good people serving their country and all the cockroaches that, try to victimize them. So we had a lot of volume. There was always something going down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell me the bridge between what happened. So were you Vice, you were street cut, what were you? And then you switched over to homicide. And that'll take us right into Leticia. You see how I did that? See, I can't answer that question for you, Chris. I can pretend to,
Dude,
but I
you're a
can't answer
pro.
that question.
You're a
Yeah,
pro.
I try to be.
I'm where do I go from here? I got you. And so
Exactly.
the kickoff was, I did a stint in patrol, then I went to Vice, then I was a dog handler. And while I was a dog handler, I got the call to go do a scent search for a little girl on Bush Street in the 1600 block of Bush Street, December 16th, 1989. And the information that we had is, mom was in the laundry and the little baby was outside playing, and she up and vanished. They thought she had gone to a friend's, up the street with the other kids to play, but there was also a belief that she potentially could have gone down towards the freeway there on Bush Street. And so they asked me. I had a dog at the time. His name was Irk. I was the dog handler on my call sign was 3 King for canine. And so we roll up. I get a debrief. And the way you scent search, Irk was a Schutzen. And a Schutzen 3 is a German Shepherd. And those dogs are, designed and trained pretty heavily. And all of his commands were in German. And so what you do is you take the leash, you hook it on the collar there, and you pull it underneath their neck. From I see it spinning, so I don't know if I'm losing you, but
You're in and out, but we're flowing.
okay, cool. Anyway, so you pull it back, you get their head down to the ground, and you want to hit.
So what I do is I'll jump in here and then he'll pop right back in. Watch how this works. This is called live. This is
That's all
called
right.
live, people.
Okay, so
This is a live we live.
yeah, my back.
You're back. Yeah. Well, you were back. Now you're not back. You know what you need to do? You need to turn the Airstream. You need to put it on its tail and then have Dylan climb up on the front and put the biggest antenna that he can find up there and make him hold it.
Yeah, I paid $1.25 for the system that I have, and I'm not great. I'm not.
Hey, Dils, can you turn the Airstream on its butt and go up there and hold the antenna, son? Thank you.
Yeah, Dill's out bowling. Just to give you a heads up, he's not here.
Are you telling me that you go on your producer goes on you got a show tonight and you let your producer off the hook bowling?
Yeah, he set it all up, and he said, "Tell Josh I said hi."
Oh,
Okay,
I bet.
hey Josh, Dylan says hi, and
Thanks.
said he had it all squared away for me. But
Yeah, okay, that's okay. We'll forgive
anyway,
him.
so jumping back real fast so that I'm not burning up your Wi-Fi. You pull the dog's head down, you give them a command. Zook was the name. It was the command, and boom, their heads down. You stick a shoe, preferably in their face. In this case, we did in his nose. Give him a scent and say Zook, and he goes. Or find the man is what we, the other side of that coin. they, he goes out and we didn't find her. So
You
RV
know,
sucks.
no, you're all right. So with um, Leticia, you know, there's a lot of similarities when it comes to just child abductions in general. When it comes to that specific case, a lot of red herrings, a lot of this person was in the area, that person was in the area, a lot of sightings, a lot of, you know, just mumbo jumbo. How many, I mean, were you chasing leads? Obviously, you must have been chasing leads that were going nowhere. But let's talk about the man in the Cadillac. What did you ever investigate the man in the Cadillac that was in the neighborhood? That was supposedly in the neighborhood offering children money for whatever, a ride or something like that.
Yeah, that was actually about a half mile, 2 miles away, or any in between that. It was up on 6th Street. So it was a little bit further west than where she lives. And, there's a lot of rabbit holes that everybody went down. But at that time, after the canine thing, I actually got in a car accident. I had a drunk driver hit me. And so they put me light duty. Fortunately, Irk wasn't in the car. And so light duty, they moved me into the bureau to catch the phone and take, reports on leads coming in for her case. And so after a while, they offered me an opportunity, if I wanted to go back to canine. And I said, sure. And so I went back for a little bit, not long, a couple weeks, because, Irk ended up having, some other problems where we were involved in some stuff and I lost him. And so it was almost like the universe was on schedule. And that was hard in of itself. And so they said, McDonough, go take fill in the paperwork, basically take the test and go into the bureau. So I did, made it. And they transferred me in the bureau. And so that was my.
I think that is
straight into
interesting.
homicide. Go ahead.
I think that's interesting because if you're, I don't know how much of it you want, get into, but you said you lost the dog. If you hadn't, you would have been a dog handler for much longer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And not been in homicide.
Correct. Yeah, I probably would have stayed in the canine program. I loved it.
And it puts you into a whole new career field. And here you are, 1989. You lose your buddy, which and there was a great question somebody asked here. It says, always wondered, with a trained dog like that, can you love on them like regular dogs? Chris, you can answer that one. Yes, Josh, you sure can. Sometimes you get too close, they bite you right in the face. I was just answering for you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. He, if it keeps going like this, I'm going to go out and come back in.
No problem. You tell me when, and I'll take it. I'll play the video too.
Well, I feel terrible that this is happening here. It's disrespectful to you.
It's not actually. If you've ever seen my show before, it's it's the opposite of disrespectful.
Yeah,
we appreciate you being here.
You drive, or you become very, very close as partners, and you're literally as partners. And somebody asked me a long time ago, what did that dog mean to you? And I said, well, that dog saved my life. I mean, and I can tell you story after story where, you're always in the mix as a dog handler, right? Because if there's a crazy guy with a gun or there's a gun battle, they're gonna send the canine unit to it. And so, I let him go, many times, guys with guns and guys that have even shot at me, and he took them out. And so I owe that dog my life.
And were you guys just
close. You're
over
able to read
very
each
attached?
Yeah, you're able to read each other, right? So anyway, I was grateful that he wasn't in the car. I'm in the bureau. This was 1990 now, and April, I think, or March of 90. And next thing you know it, there's all kinds of things going on in this case. And we had two parallel around town was what we called it. And that was run by the case agent. Her name is Sheila Hopkins. All right, Hancock. And then Mike Popkinjak, who was from the FBI. And so they were running some people that we were looking at. And then I was assigned to work with a guy named Danny Aarons. And we chased all the leads going towards the east. She was spotted in various places they were reporting. So we were chasing all that down with the FBI.
Right. And so I think you cut out on the question of could you snuggle with the dog?
Could I what?
Could you snuggle? People want to know if McFluff snuggled with his McCop dog.
No.
So yeah, but
yeah,
other people
Irk
absolutely not.
Yeah, no, Irk was a machine. But when he had a switch, like all of them, all these service dogs, they're amazing because you get so close and that you can literally give a command and, they're like, okay, I'm done. And then you give another command. They're like, what did you do? You're about ready to get eaten.
Right.
Okay. And I mean, we had a dog. He was a Belgian Malinois, and he was my old partner. In fact, the guy who just texted me is named Tommy. Okay. And Tommy, well, the military uses them now, right? They weren't using them way back then. They were using shepherds, but we had Malinois. We had a Malinois. We called them Maligators. And I saw this dog literally. We were doing some stuff, and he came off of a second floor balcony. He jumped over the balcony because he caught the scent underneath, and he jumped over the balcony, and he hit the floor like Bambi. Okay.
Oh man.
And Kevin was like, "Oh my gosh," and I'm like, "Oh man, that's not going to be good. That's going to leave a mark." And we walk, Tommy stands up like, where is he? And the two humans are going, what the heck? Is this robot dog or something? Right. I mean, this guy is nuts. And Kevin took him, and I saw him go. We had a stolen car suspect, and he was out probably about 40 yards. And Kevin sends the dog, and I'll get back on track, but I can't resist when you bring it up to tell these 4 stories.
There's no track.
Because they're funny, but they're very effective because the dog, they're machines.
And I think he dropped for 1 second, but
he sends Tommy to find him. And
you're gonna have to start over. I think we missed the good parts. And Chris,
which part did you miss?
When you said, and then Tommy sent out to find it. Most everything. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, Chris. I'm going to play the 3-minute clip of Leticia while you're getting ready. Go do your thing. And that's what we're going to do here. So everybody can know what we're talking about. He's going to go to an undisclosed location. He's going to go McFluff up somewhere else. And we're going to do this. All right. And let me just drop it down here. All right, so everybody just hang in. And so this is a little short documentary I did on the case, and it'll give you some background, and then we will catch up with Chris as soon as he gets back, and he will be. But today our story begins December 16th, 1989, when 7-year-old Oceanside girl Leticia Hernandez disappears while playing in front of her house. The details of the case go as follows. Leticia Hernandez was a 7-year-old girl who lived with her parents, grandmother, and 6 siblings in an apartment in Oceanside, California, near San Diego. At around 5 p.m. on Saturday, December 16th, 1989, Leticia went outside to play in her front yard with several other children. Her mother watched her before going into the laundry room. And about 10 minutes later, she came outside, but Leticia and the other children were nowhere to be found. And at first, her mother believed that she had gone with the other children. However, at around 9 p.m. that same night, they returned without her. A search began for the young girl, who was believed to have been kidnapped. Police first focused on a man who offered several children $50 to get into a 2-tone blue 4-door Cadillac. That was at 6th and Hill Streets, not far from the Hernandez's family's Bush Street apartment. The incident occurred around 6 p.m. on the day of Leticia's disappearance. However, the investigation soon shifted to a mystery couple. About 6 hours after Leticia's disappearance, a child fitting her description was seen at the Buckman Springs rest stop on Interstate 8, about 40 miles east of San Diego and more than 80 miles from her home. A white man was seen standing next to her. The witness did not report the sighting until he saw a picture of Leticia on TV a few days later. And 3 days later on, December 19th and December 20th, Leticia was seen at the Mount Laguna campgrounds. This time she was with a white man and a white woman. And on December 26th, she was seen at the restaurant in Octelio with the man. And over the next few months, Leticia would be seen multiple times with the mysterious couple. Based on the sightings, it appeared that they were moving eastward along Interstates 8 and 10. Most of the sightings were at the highway rest stops or gas stations. Leticia's case was profiled on Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted in early 1990, which led to several more reported sightings. In January, there were several reported sightings in Colorado, Texas, Alabama, and Florida. Starting in February, there were several sightings of Leticia and the couple throughout Florida. The last reported sighting occurred on May 22nd, 1990. The suspected abductors were a Caucasian man and a woman, and at the same time, the man was described as being in his early to mid-30s, 5'8", 200 to 250 pounds, with shoulder-length blonde hair, and a tattoo of an outlined cross with writing inside on the back of one hand. The woman was described as being approximately 30 years old, 5'10", 130 pounds, and had light-colored eyes, collar-length, dirty bleach blonde hair. And they were believed to be driving a 1975 maroon Buick Skylark with tan leather or vinyl interior. The case remained a complete mystery for the police and a heartbreak for the family. Her family even put hold on Christmas in 1990, waiting and hoping to celebrate it with Leticia when she came home. Tragically, this would never happen. On March 9th, 1991, Leticia's remains were found off County Highway S16, 23 miles from where she was abducted. Initially, the medical examiner determined that she had died between 3 months and a year earlier. Further analysis of her skull showed that she died within 3 months of her disappearance. Red shorts were found with her remains. These were the same shorts she was wearing when she vanished, and this suggests that the eyewitnesses may have been mistaken. Police believe that she was murdered, and they were investigating the case as a homicide. One suspect in Leticia's murder is a convicted child molester and alien smuggler who lived down the street from the Hernandez family. Although he claimed that he was out of town when Leticia vanished, witnesses and other evidence placed him in the area that day. According to some sources, the area where her remains were found was frequently used by smugglers. DNA from the crime scene was compared to the suspect, but the results were inconclusive. Although the man was investigated by a federal grand jury, he was never arrested. And sadly, Leticia's murder has never been solved. Her mother died of cancer in 1998 without ever seeing a resolution. Her father has since returned to his native Mexico. However, investigators have not given up on the case and are still hoping to find a resolution. The neighbor is still considered a suspect in the case. Police believe that it is unlikely that the couple was involved in the case since her remains were found relatively close to where she vanished. And the questions remain. Who is responsible for Leticia's murder? Was the neighbor responsible? Was the man in the Cadillac responsible? Did the couple have any involvement in the case, or were they just red herrings? Was Leticia killed shortly after she vanished, or was she kept alive for several months? Leticia was loved and is greatly missed. Her classmates at Palmquist Elementary School rotated what desks they sat in, so that Leticia's was never empty. Baseball star Raleigh Fingers headlined a fundraising benefit. Chris McDonough, an Oceanside police detective, composed the ballad, which was later made into a video. And if you have any information about what happened to Leticia, please contact Oceanside, California Police at 760-435-4900. Timing.
Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Sure can.
Okay. You can hear me?
I can definitely hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yep. You're perfect. Sorry.
All right. So Chris is back, ladies and gentlemen. And so, Chris, we all just watched the story, I mean, in the major parts of it, and a lot of the questions, and we can get into that here in a bit, is about, modern day DNA testing. This is an unsolved murder from 1989, and her killer is still out there. No question about it. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are, questions. You can never say for 100%, like, what's it been? It's been 30 something years now, but the man that you believe, and we don't have to, give any, but you believe that the man who did it is out there.
Yes. Yep.
So when all these leads were coming in, and there were hundreds and hundreds, because her story ended up on Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted. You guys must have just been 3 times. You guys must have been just flooded with tips, but you actually discovered her. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. What happened was there was a citizen who found some bones and had turned them in to the sheriff's department, San Diego County Sheriff's Department, and it was just off of the Pala Indian Reservation. So there's some back roads off of I think it's Highway 76 or 79, and the water had moved these remains, and they sent a sheriff's deputy to come get them. And rather than calling the ME, he took them and put them into an evidence locker. Don't go there. That's just what happened. And it wasn't until the ME's office got hold of them and said that they were human. So at that point, we were notified, the agency was notified, and everybody went out there and started doing some grid searches and kind of like they're doing up in Kingsport, right? But I found her shorts and her undergarments from hanging in some trees. So it looked like the suspect had thrown the items out of the passenger's window. So the body was down here and the clothing was about a half mile up the road. So it looks like the person threw them out the window.
Yeah. And that's probably from, after whatever, happened to her, they take off and they do that. Now, you guys were, I say you guys, the police department, you were tracking two suspects at the time, a man and a woman, that was traveling across country. Was there ever any legs to that, or was it all just, there was a lot of energy put into those two. Were they, did you ever identify those people?
No, they were never identified, but we knew, there were some other evidentiary things that the other side, that Sheila and Mike were chasing. And so we all kind of, what I was doing with Dan was checking the boxes, right? We had to check the boxes. And I would equate that to Summers' case because, everybody's waiting for, Hawkins County, TBI, FBI to, make a move. Okay. Well, it takes time. Okay. And, this was a perfect example back then. It's 33 years later that, we're getting literally thousands of phone calls and tips. She's over here. We saw her here and we saw her with this guy. And, there was a rest stop out off of Interstate 8 in Buckman Springs, where that was kind of the first, sighting. And then, it kept going from there to New Mexico, to Arizona, or from Arizona to New Mexico, Texas, and it made it all the way across to Florida. And it was all mostly, truck stops, gas stations, rest stops. And so that takes a lot of resources, so we had to coordinate, our partnerships with the FBI, and we had to have agents in each of those states, chase those leads down. So if you think about that, that's like 6 or 7 states, and we're chasing leads from that. And then simultaneously that, you have the inbound leads coming from the community in San Diego County, especially after she was found. I think it was almost, a year and a half, almost 17, 18 months later when
Right.
her body was discovered.
Wow.
So, that took a lot of resources, but what the public didn't know back at that time is that the other team were chasing down an individual that we were looking at, pretty hard.
And you run into a ton of trouble with getting, samples. The lawyer of the man just puts up a hellacious fight. She's fighting for a RSO, and
Yep.
God bless her. I get that these people have a job to do, but at some point, when does humanity kick in? It's just like, I know it's their job, and I get it. And people are going to be like, but I think if you're an RSO, you don't have any rights. That's just my opinion. And if we're looking for a kid, you're going to cooperate, and no lawyer's going to get in the way. You've lost your rights. I mean, felons can't vote, right? So tell me, how frustrating was that?
Well, for the totality of it, I mean, here we are 33 years later still talking about it. So, not that people aren't, not that they shouldn't have, the full weight of the law for both sides working for them, right? The system that we have is the best in the world. Okay? But it's the prosecutors and it's the government officials, i.e., the legislators, that make it work. Okay? And the defense, their job is to, just see if there's any problems they can find. And then, of course, their job is to make sure that those circumstances are brought, to the public clearly. Okay. And, there's sometimes people that, are just in, they have no moral fiber to operate off of. Okay. And we run into that all the time. And then again, on the other side of the coin, I've met some of the best defense attorneys in the world, and they're really good friends because
Sure.
they have a moral compass. And they know some certain things, right? They know certain things, but they have a job to do. That's our system, right? It's got to be balanced, Lady Justice. And good, because that means the prosecution should do their job and prove that this person did or did not do that crime. And that's a good thing. God forbid it be you or me that's accused of something. And I want that guy that's just wicked. I want that dude.
But I think there's a difference, and this is just me. I think that there's a
no
difference
problem.
between accusing Joe Schmo, who was possibly, but never had any trouble, and an RSO. There's a difference to me, a big time difference.
I concur, and they don't have a lot of rights, right? I mean, they waive their fourth, right? So meaning, their fourth waiver is what we call them. And so their PO could show up any time of the day and say, stand over there, we're searching your room, we're searching your computer, and we're going to search everything that you have. Okay. Now, if they want to take DNA, then they have to get a warrant. Okay. And they have to have probable cause to support that warrant in the affidavit.
Just like anybody
So
else.
Just like anybody else, because at that
There's
point,
where my problem is.
well, it's not a bad problem to have, because I agree with you. But if we eliminate it, then the government will run just crazy. They'll just do whatever they want when they want. And
Well, I'm just talking about RSOs, not anybody in general.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And that's why they're contained through a registry. Okay? They lose their right to search, i.e., a fourth waiver. Okay, based on the severity of their crime. Okay, but they also have other constitutional protections that neither of us agree with, but it is the Constitution. It is our country, and we have to abide by the rules. And so this guy, though, we knew, had a really good attorney. We also knew that we had to do a lot more. The good news is we got some stuff, and it was, submitted to various labs. It went to the grand jury. There was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes, but to this date, you know, uh, unfortunately, a lot of the DNA was not good enough originally. We got it out of the car that he was in, that he was operating, and so we were able to run that, but it wasn't good enough to do a deeper dive.
Is this true right
Maybe
here? Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
no, you finish. Go ahead.
Oh, you were just going to say maybe what? Maybe if it was, now.
Well, not necessarily now. The grade of the DNA. Remember, this was 1990 and 91. DNA was, what's DNA?
Right.
Okay. And so I know recently, uh, and I talked to one of my old partners, she looked into it again, and I think they resubmitted some stuff, and it was still not good enough yet. So I'm not done personally. I mean, I'm going to talk to Francine. I mean, we've had conversations, but I know they have kicked this thing in every direction. Everybody wants this person as much as the next guy. And you're right. He's been out there for 33 years. I do not know if there have been other crimes or other problems. Of course, that was the beginning of my career in terms of homicide. So I ended up, kicking off a lot of other murders. And Sheila and Mike, when we ran out of the going east situation, then they had, a couple of them had retired, and I ended up pulling the case for about a year full time. And then, we ran out of things. I had developed some other leads of the area where the bones were found and the people living on that property. I dug a little deeper into them and to the associations to the neighborhood, back to some other people. And then I had to turn that over to somebody else. So the case is still in the file, okay, and meaning it's still being worked, even though I know the department said, well, we just don't, we're not pushing it right now, okay. I guarantee you it's being worked. I guarantee it.
And you're convinced that this is the guy's out there, that who he is. You just can't make look. If there was a DNA match, this case would have been solved a long time ago. But there is new DNA testing going on all the time. There's you had a lovely person on your show talking about the vacuum DNA, and that's being used in a lot of cold cases right now. And I mean a lot. Matter of fact, for the people that follow this show, the murder of Garrett Phillips in Potsdam, New York, they just retested some old DNA. But look, we're talking 10 years old. We're not talking 33 years either.
Right.
Now, I'm not able to say what, but this is what is happening now. And so is that the goal? Is that how this will get solved? Is advancement in DNA?
Yeah, ultimately, right. And because I think, the more they use it, remember, every time they test it in the lab, it becomes much more problematic, right? So now, as it's almost this minutia, the Bardot method, touch DNA is what it's called. I mean, Francine's able to pull DNA off of rocks. I mean, and this is, it's interesting not to not to diverse for a second, or kind of go off track, but I think it's important, where Suzanne Morphew, okay, they have some DNA on the glove box. Okay, well, the defense is making a big deal out of that. Okay, saying, look, it matches a couple of sex offenders and RSOs, and they had the wrong guy. It's not very well. You know what? Everybody's DNA potentially could match in different variances. You have to look for that match that says there is no doubt this is the guy. Just run your DNA through ancestry.com and look who shows up. You have 1/10 of this particular particle that says you're connected to this dude over here or this gal over there. Well, that's the point. Okay, but then you start getting these variances that say, hey, this is actually your first cousin. Okay, what? Okay, and then you kind of go, oh my gosh, we've got the same.
I took her to the 7th grade dance. What?
Right, exactly.
I'm sorry,
exactly.
I had this confession time.
No, it hit me. And so, right, and that's the play here, and that's why I said early on in that case, Suzanne will be on trial. The cops and the government will be on trial. Barry Morphew will be, hey, I didn't have a dart in my house, yada, 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 yada. Okay. Right. And it's typical. That's what they teach in law school, and it's right out of the textbook.
Yeah. And, like you said earlier, everybody is entitled to defense. That's just how, or counsel, and that's just how our system works. And I have no problems with that. But what I do have problems with are the dirty tricks and tactics. I watched, and we can talk about this on another time, but I was really into the Casey Anthony trial. And there was a man who I let him know in not so many words. His name was Jose Baez. And him and I were in discussions of doing a show together. He was going to come on. It deteriorated fast because he wanted to know what I thought of his tactics. And I said, well, you're kind of a jerk off for what you did to the father. I did not like that. And he said, well, that's my job. I said, your job's to destroy an innocent person who's not on trial. You put another man on trial. I don't like that stuff. And I get that. What I told him was, you threw everything against the wall and you hope something would stick. And there was just, that's what they do. But there are laws in place now where you're not to be dragging victims through the mud. That happened in the case of, it was the Knoxville murders. I can't remember. The laws got changed because they were putting victims on trial. Okay. And so as defense, I get it. I get what defense attorneys do. Some are a little bit more ethical than others. Would you agree with that?
I think some have a better compass. Okay. They have a better compass. And It doesn't mean, though, that, we can't throw them all in the same bucket, because, they're doing their job. And it's just like you can't throw, all cops in the same bucket, right? I mean, you've known me now for quite some time. We've talked behind the scenes, and, things that have been said about me.
I would run.
I know. things that have been said about me, and, I just had the opportunity just a couple of days ago to testify in a murder trial that, I was involved in. And, all the other stuff that is not stuff, was tried to, they tried to bring it up and use it against me. I answered every single question, and they kind of ran out of questions because it's a nothing burger. And this is, just last Tuesday in a murder case. In another state, and but we can't talk about it because the jury's out now, and they're deliberating, so we got to let that go. And but after it's over, whatever the verdict is, then we can talk about it. But these are the kind of things where they had a job to do.
Sure.
They have to ask these questions, and so that's where you just kind of say, okay, they're doing their job, next. And when they don't do their job, they lose, and so does their client. And so in this case, this is going to be something that at some point, it's 33 years right now. I'm waiting for the day when my phone rings and says, "You're not going to believe this." Boom. Okay. And I will believe it because I have faith that you can't put limits on a limitless God. Okay. And I always try to think through, what's the next step? What potentially could be going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of? Does it? Yeah. Oh, he knows, Mimi. They know.
You've been acquainted, haven't you? You've had a talk or two.
Well, others, right? And it's
Absolutely.
the rodeo travels too. But it never ends.
Well, that's a fact. It's not your first rodeo. Now here's a great question. Vet Girl says, what about genealogy mapping with mapped sequence? I don't know what that means, but it's a great question.
So, what they're doing is obviously familiar genealogy, right? That's a big thing. That's how they caught the Golden Gate or the Golden State Killer.
Ancestry.com stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And, they got a partial hit, and, they were able then to go back and, do what they needed to do in terms of, swabbing other people and then reconnecting the dots. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just keep hoping that there is this idea that folks aren't afraid that these companies and I don't know. I did my genealogy. I did my swab. Here you go. Oh, by the way, I'm from whatever. Okay, and hopefully I don't have some kook in my family that's been whacking people. But if I did, and they came to me and said, "Hey, can we take your swab?" I'm going to say, go ahead. You're looking at Uncle Frankie. You know what I mean?
Let me take my dentures out, and we'll get you hooked up here with some saliva.
My dentures. I love it. I love it. Yeah, when I started right on YouTube, remember I had a lisp. I had dentures. The guy, he's got nose hair. I mean, I'm like, what did I do? I woke up this morning and I got hit by a snowplow almost instantly. And it was like, wow, okay, what is this all about? So, I mean, I don't, me, I'm like,
you don't
okay,
care. Yeah.
This is how it works. I mean,
Well,
I had one person's, I I swear to you, I had one person in the chat say, look, his top dentures just fell out, right? And he's adjusting them. Okay, I don't want to break a stereotype. If I have dentures, then you're good. Okay, I'm going to stick with that. Okay, but I'm going to disappoint you tonight. Okay, these are the real chops. Okay, there's nothing. They're real. Okay, and the lisp thing, I think, is a microphone thing. Because if I had a lisp, I would be talking like this. Okay, and now every once in a while, I may have a lisp. I'm good with that. Okay, it's been my list, and so anyway, I digressed it and pretty quickly, to the McFluff. Sorry about that.
No, the funny thing is that when when do impressions of you, we ham it up. Okay, so
I love it. I love it.
Now obviously, you throw an S on the end of everything and it sounds funnier. You just say, hey, Dilsh, you going bowling tonight? So I got that shows with Joshers. Okay, let's get things set up, Dilsh. And by the way, Dills, right. I hope you throw at least 3 gutter balls tonight, and miss multiple 7-10 splits. Just
that
kidding.
Chicken beak. He should have been here. I know. I love that boy. He's he's going to. He's getting ready to, get on his own here pretty soon. He's been accepted to avionics program for flight school, and then he's going the ROTC for the Air Force. So he wants to follow after his grandfather, you know,
serving his country,
so,
you know.
Yeah.
Well,
God
look, I
bless him,
mean,
you know.
absolutely, he's fantastic. We love giving him, you know, he's I don't think people understand how big of a part of the team he really is.
Yeah, he is.
The kid is talented, you know. And I even told him, I said, when you get done with that Air Force stuff, you come see me, you can come work on some stuff with me. Cause I mean, he is talented. So, you know, that's why we like to give him grief when he wants to go be a kid and go bowling. There's work to be done. All right. That's just like you. My son does a lot of stuff for me when I don't know what I'm doing. And that happens to me more often than not. But no, you don't have false teeth. You don't have a lisp. But when I tell you this, Chris, when I first heard
I will one day.
well, I don't know, man. Somebody said right here, Chris M, that hair is spot on. Karen better hold you tight tonight because the chat is loving your hair. Okay, that's a fact.
The McFluff, it's happening.
It's a fantastic, yeah. It's fantastic. But also, though, you know, when I first heard you talk, I thought you were from Michigan.
Well, Karen's from Michigan.
I know, but she doesn't talk
my
like
wife
that.
No, she doesn't. I mean, I don't know what accent I have. I mean, I think, you know, because, you know, we moved so much as a kid, you know, and then we finally landed. You know, we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Japan, I lived in Boston, I lived in Maryland, Virginia, you know, and then we landed in California when I was 14. But every 2 years up until that point, the most time I spent was out of that, you know, 14 years, about almost just under 7 was in Hawaii. In fact, I got out of school in the 7th grade in Hawaii. I went to St. Anthony's School in Kailua, off of Kailua Boulevard. If any of my Hawaiian folks are out there, you know, shaka. Oh. And so my dad was stationed at Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station, the Marine base still there. And then he got transferred to, you know, Camp Pendleton. And so that's where we kind of landed. But up until that point, you know, we traveled all around the country. I was born in North Carolina on Camp Lejeune. So I was, and I tell everybody, they don't believe me, that they slapped my mother. Okay. And so it's a true statement. You know, my mom,
I hope
I had an amazing mother. I mean, she was, you know, she's just an amazing mother. But I was very blessed with a good mom. So, and I know that that's sometimes hard to hear. So I apologize, Josh. But
no, you know,
so
it's
let's
not.
Get back to the case. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, all in due time. I did want to show this. I made this for you the other night.
Oh, this, you know what? This looks like, you know, this isn't your best work. I'm going to be honest with you. This looks like it's got a,
yeah.
It looks like a bird's nest. So I expect it much better from you.
No, you don't. And that's the thing. You don't say it, because you know that's not true. You don't expect more from me. You expect exactly this. And I think that it is my best work. Now let's take a look here. You see 2 items alike. Here we go. Okay, one's a bird nest.
Okay, we're going to let your audience decide.
They're going to
go with a bird's nest. Go ahead.
Okay, and the up.
Oh wait. Oh, that's different. That is good work. Oh, you're going to put it over. Yeah, that's right. See? You know, it looks like something on a San Juan Capistrano where the sparrows would go.
That's my best work, man.
Dude, I am disappointed in you. I expected a little better, you know, quality in this, but it's good.
I don't think you expected anything.
That's historical.
Oh man, that was fun. So- you're a good
That's
sport
for
about
sure.
everything. I'll tell you, when you did that, was it when you told me that I was the Ninja Jim Belushi? Now that was funny stuff.
Yeah, Samurai. Remember Samurai Chef? When you had it, look, you have the look going, bro. I know that's why you wear the hat, but I think our audience here would
Well, look,
agree that
you're not
you
the
know.
only
See, look at this. It's the Belushi. Belushi. Okay, guys.
you're not the only fluff in town, my man.
No, dude, you're rocking it. You are rocking it.
I'm gonna get it parted right down the middle.
Yeah.
And you're such a good sport. But yeah, let's get back to the case, because this young lady deserves our attention. And like you said, this is an unsolved. And by the way, the chat loves the bird's nest hair. So you were wrong. I was right.
You win.
Well, anything that involves you and your hair, they love. So, I'm a man of the people. So, go ahead.
I'm the man with the fluff, and one day when you get to my age, okay, I'll be on the other side waiting for you. But when you get to my age, okay, you're going to say, I wish I had hair.
Yeah.
Okay? Like the fluff, because it comes and goes pretty quick, but mine apparently likes to stay. So
maybe we'll be
go.
roommates in an Airstream in heaven.
Yeah.
You get the top bunk, okay?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible. You're gonna have to convince Karen that you've moved in.
Oh, okay. Hey, Dills, you're gonna have to scoot over, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
So back to Leticia. When the girl goes missing, and then there were several leads that turned out to be nothing, and it's just people are overzealous when it comes to that. You have to be, because you have to follow every lead and things like that. And poor Leticia, she was out in the yard with her brothers and sisters, correct? And they took off, and somehow she just didn't end up with them, right? Is that right. What you?
Right. There was a belief that she, went with her siblings, and that wasn't that didn't happen. I saw a question. Can I answer a question?
Of course.
About whether I'm a Freemason? No, I'm not a Freemason. I do wear a Claddagh ring, though. See this Claddagh ring? So maybe they think the ring is a Freemason. So no, I'm not associated with any Freemason.
Skull and Bones personally. With George Bush. Nope. I don't even know. Like, you're a Freemason. Are you a spackler? A spackling mason?
I know how to spackle, but not as good as some others.
Well, look, that's what happens when you start doing it when you're 10.
Exactly.
And so Leticia, she goes missing. Somehow she doesn't end up with her brothers and sisters. Did you ever get a feeling why that was?
No, because the individual was known to the neighborhood. Let me leave it there. I can't go into too much detail because the person is still out there, and that area is a very dangerous area. And if he or she was identified, it could be problematic.
Do people in his neighborhood or at the time, did they suspect him?
No.
Right. And so, I mean, obviously you have to protect the integrity of the investigation. That's first and foremost, and justice. Right. But it sounds like it was a rough neighborhood. And unfortunately, as I was researching this, that the mother has passed away from cancer, and she never got to see a resolution. And the father's now back in Mexico. Right. And there's just, I guess there is some, it's not closure, because that's just the wrong word. You want to find out, and you want to bring your child home and have a proper burial and things like that. But you also want justice. So you guys, you find her, but you were just never able for that little, just, you needed that little connection, that little piece. And that it's eluded for 33 years now, and hopefully that there is a resolution that modern technology can go back and get. I mean, does that happen much?
What we have right now is the hope of DNA. We've collected evidence. I know that if this DNA came back with a hit in totality, that I'm sure the investigators, cold case investigators, are hoping. If it came back solid, then that would be enough to put her in his car. And then the other stuff, obviously would go from there, because there's a whole bunch of other circumstantial evidence that could connect him to certain areas, certain places, past where the body was, that kind of thing. So there's a lot that could connect, and it'd be the last piece would be to have this degraded DNA say, yeah, it's him or it's her.
Right. And is a question, Will wanted to ask Chris, for various reasons, a particular case will, for whatever reason, become deeply personal to you. I'm just curious what it was about this case among many. It was that touched you. What was it about this? Was it the fact that it was your first? Was it the fact that it's never been closed? I mean, combination?
That is a great question. Who asked that? Teresa?
Well, no, Teresa asked it for Will.
For Will. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back in that time, when I heard that she could have been alive in a car traveling, I got hold of a couple of friends of mine, two very dear friends of mine. One is a Samoan. His name is Richard Tialavia, and then a Hawaiian buddy of mine named Keenan Kanahele. And I said, hey, I think this kid's alive, maybe, based on what we're hearing. And if she is alive, I had this idea, this impression, this inspiration, and I penned a song. And it was called Leticia. Okay? And I went to the local community college. It was Maricosta College up there. And they had a recording studio. Anyway, I got hold of Keenan. I don't know if you've ever heard Polynesians sing, but it's like heaven. Okay,
I have that somewhere over the rainbow by that enormous Hawaiian guy. I can't remember his name. Voice of an Angel.
Right. It's like heaven. And so anyway, I cut the song. We cut the song. And it, I had an idea to put this thing out for the public. And, if she heard it, with the plan, if she was alive and she was in this car with that couple, maybe she would hear it and know that we were chasing her. Okay, we're coming. So I think that was what really moved my heart so close to her. And then, of course, the family, this is a very poor family. They didn't have a lot of resources. And, it was tough for them. And my parents raised me to be considerate and sensitive to other people, because my mother used to always say, you never know the Gethsemane that they're kneeling in. Okay. And I've tried to live that principle in my life. And, you know, so sometimes I think with my heart, and it gets me in trouble too, by the way, on the same period. But I think that's what drove me to this, to so close to this case, is I just thought, okay, I got to do something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to be open to all things coming. And the song is what kind of drove it. And then that turned into, as you know, the Greatest Save, which is the largest child safety organization in the United States. And I don't make any money for any of those things.
Matter of
Purely,
fact, the song that you did was a fundraiser, and by the way, you guys raised a good amount with Raleigh Fingers, and you're a very talented musician. You honestly are, because if you sucked, I'd tell you, and you don't. You're good. There's nothing worse than somebody like busting out the guitar. They're like, dude, you want to hear it? And you're like, no, not really, because you suck at playing the guitar. And that's happened to me where I've been just stuck in a living room with some guy who just got divorced from his wife, and it's not his weekend with the kids. So he's drank one too many blue moons, and he's just pounded on the guitar, singing stuff I don't want to hear. At some point you're going to have to go, you know what, dude, you might need to try the, I don't know, the kazoo or something, because you're just not good at it. You are a talented musician, and you guys raised a lot of money, for this cause. Like you said, it was all charitable, and it was that the first time you met Raleigh Fingers? And Raleigh Fingers is a legendary baseball player with the best mustache of all time. Had you known him before that?
No, I knew his wife, Susie, and she said, "Do you want Raleigh to help you?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, it'd be great." And then I also knew Junior Seau, because he's from Oceanside. Mm-hmm. And Junior, called me up and he says, "Hey, do you need help?" I said, "Yeah, come to this banquet as celebrities, and let's see if we can, help, put this together." And it was called San Diegans for the Return of Leticia Hernandez. And, that's when I met Doug. And by the way, the friend I just said I lost from COVID was Doug, just a couple of days ago. So it was, and Doug came to me and he said, and he's a marketing genius. And he said, "Look," he said, "we want to protect children all over the world. What can we do?" And I said, "Well, I don't do money. I don't touch money. And let's create this foundation." And he did. And all of those funds went from a bank to the foundation. And now if you're in any of the high schools in the states of Alabama or Florida, those are legislatively funded child safety programs in the curriculum. That's Kindervision. It's in different states for kids. And so Doug was responsible for that. And then I hooked him up with Raleigh, and then all kinds of baseball players came, Raleigh Fingers, Greg Nettles, the list goes on. These guys were amazing to donate their name and their time for this cause. And now the program, The Greatest Save, is a direct result of that. And it's a Major League alumni baseball foundation. It's their charity. And so you may have had your kids fingerprinted and photograph taken and then handed back to you back in the day from a cassette. I do have a funny story. I was on the end of a lot of the Scooby-Doo cartoons, from Warner Brothers, and they put the vignette of me talking about, safety tips for children. And I went one day. I went when my children were younger. I was out trick-or-treating with them, and I went up to the house, and this little guy, came to the door to hand the candy, and he just kind of froze, and you know, I was like, and the guy, his dad was standing next to him. He goes, "Hey, you're the guy on the Scooby Doo cartoons." I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I am." But I didn't know how far it had gone. Right? Doug was, saving children all around the world and or around the country, and I think we documented and gave back to the families uh, just over 1 million children in
That's
this
awesome.
country. Yeah, and that's the deal that I made, though, right? With my
Yeah.
God. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the work that, especially, you and I were talking about the teddy bear that was handed to me when I was a little kid, by, by a police officer. And, after, a tragic event, the tragic event of my life happened. Um, and I always remembered that, uh, you know, my dealings with, especially being a child victim, the, they were really good. They were really good to me. I mean, as good as they could. But at the same time, what an impossible job. It's just, it's a thankless job. It really truly is, because there is no glory, in being, ridiculed. And that's why I really do, I don't enjoy when people are critical of the police unless it's completely warranted. I mean, we all know those certain situations, the major ones, through the years, we've all seen them. But when people start telling cops how to do their jobs, the way that they should do the investigations, comparing people to other departments, comparing departments, or not even that, it's just different agencies, it becomes infuriating. And from everything that I know about law enforcement, is that, like, we're dealing with very normal people who go home to their families every day and try their best. One thing that I hear all the time, and I know you do too: when will the Summer Wells case be solved? When will the Leticia Hernandez case be solved? You've been hearing that your whole career. When you hear that, do you just think to yourself, when it happens? I mean, you can't put that kind of time limit on stuff, right? I mean, we're talking 33 years later about an unsolved case. And we're all hoping that that's not the case with, Summer Wells and the West Boys and Angel Nicole Overstreet. We all hope that that's not the case, but it very well could happen in one of these cases, if not all of them, and hopefully not. But what is your response to people when they would say, when are you going to get this thing solved? I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, in a lot of ways, obviously we have to be patient, and we have to trust the system that it's going to work correctly. So, the good news is there's never a statute of limitations to any of this, right? For Leticia, for Summer, wherever. Okay, the perpetrator always believes that they're one step ahead of the authorities. Okay, and they position themselves multiple, that way. They have to, because they know they don't get a second chance when you know you know the people, the authorities come, when they show up and they say hi. uh, you know they're not there to sell ice cream, let's just put it that way. Okay, at that point. And so I think it's important that the authorities continue to do what they need to do. Even with Leticia's case, I mean, I get phone calls every once in a while from the bureau, guys working it, guys and gals working it, and said, "Hey, do you remember?" Or, "Hey, what do you think?" And so it's still perpetual in motion. Okay. The Summers case is really, really, really early. Okay. They're really early right now. Okay?
By
So
your standards, correct? Not the public's though, but by investigator standpoint.
yeah, I mean, DW is like another Omicron variant. It just it just keeps it just keeps getting worse, allegedly, right? So I mean, you go, wow, cool, okay, because it's one of these things. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. All right, and well, the authorities love that. They love it. All right, because you know that's the nature of the beast. So you let them run. You don't want to shut the door yet. Let them run. Let people run. And if people aren't involved, well, then they're not involved. And you have time to focus, like the two-pronged situation where I was going, chasing the car, and the two, the blonde-headed dude and the girl going eastbound. And when all the tips would come in from America's Most Wanted, but behind the scenes, okay, Omicron Don, I like it.
That was good, man. The chat, I'm
like
telling you, man, the chat is
I
on
love you
fire
guys.
sometimes, man.
You guys are awesome. That is so good. Very good.
That's
Thank
some
you.
funny
Can I
stuff.
use that quiz?
Please.
Can I use that, the quiz? I'm going to use Omicron Don.
Omicron Don.
There you go. See? So that's the point, right? Everybody's getting it. Everybody's getting it. And as long as we do the right thing, respectfully and leave enough room, then it will fall into place. And when it falls into place, everybody's going to sit back like we all did with Barry and Larry. Remember, we're batting 1,000 right now. We got Larry and Barry. Okay, now some other things happening here, and if we're patient and just let it take its course, then a couple of things we don't have to say we got in the way, we interfered, but oh, by the way, everything that we have is evidence, and you let it take its course. So I'm confident this case, Summers case, will be solved. I'm very confident in that.
I feel the same way.
Do you feel
I do. I felt that way from, I'm not a seasoned detective or anything, but I have been into these cases for a long time. I mean, and I've seen them play out in real time. And one of the best examples was Dylan Redwine. I mean, his father just last summer, after 9 years, was sentenced to 55 years in prison for his murder. Kid goes missing the first day he shows up at his dad's house. He doesn't want to go, and the kid is just gone. He vanishes. Well, he says, oh, well, maybe he got lost, maybe all this. He starts he starts going on media blitzes. I'd never do anything to my son. I love my boy. Well, come to find out, there's tons of blood in the house that they had known about for 2 years, but they didn't say a word about it. Then they name him a person of interest. That's it. Person of interest. Then they find some bones. Now he's a suspect because it's 10 miles from his house.
Right.
And finally, after 8 years, actually it was 9 because COVID pushed the trial back. Same thing with Casey Anthony. It took him 9 months to find Kaylee by accident, like 3/4 of a mile from her house. EquiSearch is out there gridding everything off for weeks. And she was just right around the corner from her house. I think that this might be another situation, something similar there, because it's hard to find people. It's hard.
Well, if
It's
you
hard to
look at the
control.
victim continuum again, right? Right. And let's use it for Leticia's case, environment, situation, circumstance. Okay. She's in a medium risk level. Okay. Medium risk. Okay. So that means there's a higher probability that she was a targeted little kid. Okay. And lo and behold, what do we find? Well, yeah, she fit right in the scope of and the eyesights of an RSO. Okay. And we started working that. Now you take Summer, okay, and I've said this from the beginning, just kind of, moving into, what the statistics, what the training, what the science to that, why the victim continuum is focused pretty clearly. Well, Summer's a very low risk victim in relationship to the continuum. Not that she wasn't a low risk victim to abuse, she was a high risk in that environment. Okay? But the fact that everything focused on, and thank you for all these comments, really gratefully. The fact that she was, in the basement, allegedly, okay, that put her in a very low risk presentation. Okay. So there's a higher probability that child was known to the offender and or known to somebody that came up to that property or had access to that property, okay, i.e. somebody at some point has crossed into Summer's path or Summer path crossed into that perpetrator's path. Statistically, that's what it tells us. And that's why I've said from the very beginning, okay, don't leave the house. I said it in Barry's case. I said it in Larry's case. And I'm going to say it in Summer's case. Okay? There's somebody or something connected to the parents, the house, and in that environment. It is not, a total stranger coming over and saying, I'm going to snatch you. Now, that could encompass the neighborhood, somebody who knows that neighborhood. Okay? And that's what I've been saying. And that's where this case, in my opinion, if I was, a consultant on it, I would say, stay in the neighborhood. Stay in the neighborhood right now. Now that means it could have come from, it started in the water hole. That could be the theory. It could be an accident. And she gets home, right? And we talked about that today.
We did.
Okay, for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you brought that up,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, that's still in play. That's still in play. Okay. But it's not going to be, some total stranger that just falls out of the woodwork. It's going to have to be somebody that knows that environment to get close to that property in what we call a geographic profile.
Well, if they say the way that it happened, that say somebody came up there and took her out of the basement, which I don't believe happened, but that's just, me. Yeah. How are they going to know that Summer's in the basement?
Right. That's the biggest problem. I mean, if you look at even the most recent pictures online, right? You can't even see through that door. I stood in front of it, and there's a reflection. It's a one-way glass.
Mimi, can you put your question up again? I lost it, and it was a really good question. If you could throw that back up. It says, yeah, the meter man did find Kaylee's bones, reported to the police. They came out 3 times, couldn't find them, and reported again after he finally went and looked himself. Yeah, he actually had to go to the bathroom to go pee, and saw what he's, it was a bad, the whole thing it's terrible, but she was wrapped in her head was wrapped with duct tape around it. And I think there was still duct tape at the time that they had found it and things like that. But just a That's how a lot of these things. There was a case where it was a Nathaniel Rowan. He was the Uber driver that killed I don't know if you heard that case, but the girl, he was a fake Uber driver is what he was, picked up a woman and then he murdered her, tossed her in a field. Well, turkey hunters found her, rather quick, but they were just out there, kind of doing their turkey hunting thing. And that's how a lot of this stuff happens. But could you see a scenario where if they don't find Summer's body, that they could still go ahead and charge people?
Yes.
Yeah, the laws have really opened up a bit on that, haven't they, over the years? I.e., Miliete.
Yeah, he's a perfect example. You can run and hide, but you can't run from a satellite.
Okay,
What I mean by that,
go ahead.
what I mean by that, there's technology. There is technology that law enforcement has access to that can put phones within 2 feet of where they are. And so it's kind of like, you can say I was over there, I was over here, I was, over there. Okay, fine. But the law enforcement's able to say, yeah, but before you were there, you stood here, and then you went over there, and then you went over there. So let's talk about that. Okay? So again, I'm confident that because the card team has been involved in this from day one, and we're 8 months into this, you realize the card team is the Federal Bureau of Investigation's resources. Okay. And they have what they call a CAS team. Okay. Cellular analytics, basically. And that's what they use to put Alex's phone in the backyard with Tylee. Okay. When they were killing that baby, that little girl.
Right.
And boy, in the Daybell case. See, this is what crooks don't comprehend. Okay. They don't understand, I can say I was A, B, C, or D. Well, that's fine. Say it all you want. Okay? That's evidence. The more you open your mouth, the more evidence is collected. That's when they walk in and they throw a report in front of you and say, well, let's talk about this. Go ahead.
Right. Well, Mimi J2 asked, my question was, would solving Summer's case mean that you have to focus on the circumstances of her death?
No, you don't ask the how did this happen. You ask why. Why? Meaning, why was this victim selected? Why was this particular circumstance the way it is? Why were people saying what they said? Why are all these cast of characters coming forward and, having whatever they're doing? Okay. You always ask why. You never ask how. Okay. How did it happen? Because when you do that, then you won't understand the totality of the motive. Okay. Because if you just say, well, she, dry drowned, okay, or whatever. Okay. Okay. Well, that may be how it occurred, but we won't know that till an autopsy. Okay. So the bigger question is, why was she at the waterhole? Okay. Why could that be a possibility? And so you ask a lot more whys and you solve cases. Okay. The investigators that go into things and they ask how, okay, they get stuck. They get stuck. And that's why the Cold Case Foundation exists. Because we're able to go back in. I had a case in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I can talk about it now. It was a woman who was killed in a donut shop. She was murdered when her brother was in the back and she was murdered in the front. Forever, the cops accused him. Okay? And these guys were in a class I was teaching, and I taught that principle. And so one of the guys, kind of an interesting character. He says, well, what would you do? And he said it kind of just like that. And my response to him was pretty quick. I looked over at Coop because we were team teaching the class. And I looked at him and I said, make donuts. And this seasoned investigator looked at me, cocked his head, and he's like, what? And I said, make donuts. He said, for 18 years, you guys have been accusing the brother. He lawyered up. So why don't you ask him if you can come over at 3:00 in the morning and make donuts, because you want to feel what his sister felt like at 3:00 in the morning making donuts. And that way you'd be able to see what the suspect saw and why he targeted her. And he kind of went like that. And I think about a month later, we got a phone call. Says, you're not going to believe this. And I said, try me. He made donuts, and the brother turned to him and says, you don't think I killed my sister, do you? And the guy was like, well, I can't talk about it because you lawyered up. He goes, I didn't kill my sister, but I want to tell you about a kid that used to hang out here. All that was simple thought process of why. Okay. Making donuts. It's not complicated. We make it complicated when we try to ask the how, and then we prescribe before we diagnose. Okay. Don't prescribe before you diagnose. Don't do that. We'll get stuck.
I'm kind of Occam's razor type, situation. I always kind of feel like the most logical explanation is typically the right one. I know that that's not exclusive, but I do subscribe to that theory. And then I start hearing these, and this happens in all cases, but you start hearing these just kind of crazy, off the wall, theories. And I think that actually does a disservice. Speculation, wild speculation and wild conjecture are different than speculation and conjecture. If you're speculating, reasonably, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But when you start talking aliens and you start talking about Bigfoot, being involved, those are just examples, but, some intercontinental new world order trafficking ring that has spaceships underground, type, it's a disservice to the entire investigation. And we run into a lot of speculation in this case because not a lot has been released. Right back to the Leticia case as well. There are things about this case that you can't even still to this day talk about because it's an ongoing investigation 33 years later. And
that's right.
Us as a general public, we want to know those things, but it's for the best that we don't, because can you imagine everything? We get people compromising cases that know nothing about cases. They just show up out of nowhere. It's just a little much,
Yeah. But the reality to that, right, is law enforcement really, they don't lose a lot of sleep over that stuff because they're really not, they're not going to interfere with the case unless they physically, do stuff that, you shouldn't do that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, if, and most of the YouTube channels out there are very rational. I mean, there are a lot of great people. You're a perfect example of that. Okay.
I don't know what the hell YouTube you're watching, Chris.
Trust me, I wouldn't be here if you weren't wrapped correctly. Okay?
Oh, well, no, I'm talking about you say, yeah, I understand. I appreciate that. Thank you. I do appreciate
that. No, there's other things that, you just go, okay, I've got too much to do, i.e., we're looking for a little girl over here or other things, other cases. And so those are the kind of things that LE says, okay, what did that person say?
Right.
Oh, it was this guy, it was DW, or it was C, or whoever. Okay. They're sitting there like this, okay, with the record button. Okay? And all of that is evidence. Okay? And it doesn't matter where it came from as long as it came out of their mouth. Okay? And that's the kind of stuff that we want. And that's the kind of stuff that, needs to be occurring here, and which it is. And we have a lot of smart people in the world, around the world, that analyze that. I mean, I've picked up and learned, from a bunch of people on YouTube. Okay. And then there's others where you just go click, go to the next one, click, go to the next one. Okay. But there are really smart people. And that's the one thing that I think law enforcement is coming to accept, that we know, and I say we because, I'm retired, but I'm still active in cases. Okay. And mostly on a, consulting / contract basis, i.e. for government or whatever. I have a government contract. And so, a lot of these law enforcement agencies are coming to realize the power of what we've got going here on YouTube. Okay? As long as it's correctly executed. I mean, we could really make a huge difference, because, they get to watch it for free. They get it for free. No search warrant, no Miranda, no nothing. It's a gift. Okay, it's a gift. I mean, when Jeannie talked to her detective in Utah, she said, go, watch this guy called, this other guy. Now can you imagine how that's going to play out in an interview room? Well, did you really say that you did this to your stepsister? Well, yeah. Oh, okay. Let me read you your Miranda rights. Okay. Click. Have a great day.
No,
So that's it.
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just not going to worry about it no more. I'm tired of running from her.
Right.
And her bullshit. I've been paying for this shit my whole life. She's done this shit to me my whole life, and I'm done with it.
Right.
If you notice now, take out subscriptions.
Right, and now think about being that attorney to representing. Okay. Hey, so we're going to need some character references.
All right.
Put them on the stand. Okay. What do you got? Okay.
Right.
It's like Omicron version B.
Omnidon.
Omnidon version B. Okay.
I can't, sometimes I think about law enforcement, they kind of, this is just my impression that they grab the chairs at night and they pop some popcorn and they go, we're watching YouTube tonight, boys, and boys and girls. And they sit around and they watch YouTube and take notes and record and eat some popcorn. Because like you said, a lot of the work, they can just sit back and watch and go, oh, this is heaven. This is easy. If you're willing to tell everything and say incriminating stuff, not only in public, but where it can go viral, which it always does, because Don Wells can say something outlandish, or Candace, and I wake up the next day and I've got 30 emails, I've got text messages, and I'm just me. Imagine law enforcement sitting there going, oh boy, here we go. It is any lawyer. First of all, if anybody else besides them would have a lawyer, a real lawyer, and they would not be allowed to talk at all. And guess what? We would have gone away. All of us. There's nothing to talk about. They give it to us to talk about, right? Whether they want to or not, they give it to us. If they just stopped talking, we would go away. But they won't
Yeah,
stop talking, and we're not going away.
I love the old, case where it wasn't mine. I'm just using this as an analogy. The kid that walks into the liquor store and says, "Yeah," he puts a 12-pack of beer on the counter, and the clerk looks at him and says, "You got an ID?" And he pulls out an ID and hands it to him. And as he's looking to it, the kid pulls a gun and says, "Give me all the money on the cash register." So the clerk reaches up and puts it in there and puts the ID in his pocket, and the guy runs. Right? The cops show up and hands him the ID and says, "Here's your guy." Okay, that's what's happening here sometimes. Okay, it's like, there's an armed robbery in progress, but you've just handed everybody your identification, and when the cops show up, the witness goes, "Here's your sign." Okay, and that takes a lot, right? That takes a lot of chutzpah, and there is no statute of limitations in Utah for sexual assault on children. Isn't that legislation wonderful?
We talked about that. You and I talked about that, and what you said to me, it was so I'd never even thought about that. As smart as you say that I am, I never thought about this, but it makes all the sense in the world. When the crimes are occurring, they're kids. Who are they going to tell at the time that's, even really going to listen? Well, now it's different, but it hasn't been that way in the past. Okay. But these crimes are happening against young people who are scared to say anything. And it needs to be a law across every state that there should be no statute of limitations on these crimes, these specific crimes, just like murder. But you were 100% right.
No, finish your thought. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I'm done. I'm done.
If our legislators pass laws that talked about children, from 0 to 18, okay, and that each of these cases is vetted. Now, what's amazing in Mary and Jeannie's case is, she came forward, Jeannie came forward, and then Mary came forward. And, reflectively, poor Jeannie said, "That's me. Okay, that's me." She was 5. Okay. But what's amazing since that time is all of the other women who came forward and said, "We were kids too, and he did the same thing to us." Now that case is concrete. It's not just, one person saying it. It's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5, it's 6. Okay. And there's going to be more at some point. I assure you of that. You don't have 6 or 7 grown women now who've been traumatized by this violence all their life. This, not only the physical violence of the assault of the SA, but the emotional violence of being a survivor, and now having an opportunity, to take their perpetrator on. Okay, this is, that's powerful. Okay, and you hear the call. Even I heard the call on a this is your channel, so I'm not going to say anything unless you say it.
You can say anything you want.
Call. Well, I heard a call that
I don't have those rules.
Okay, I like to be respectful to everybody.
I appreciate it, but I don't have those rules.
Okay, so Cher has this call up, where even he tried to call his dad and convince his dad that Jeannie had been inappropriate with his dad, and his dad's like, and by the way, I knew about this when it happened a long time ago. Okay, because the family freaked out. They were furious that he did that. The family. And by the way, that's his. What's another piece of that puzzle that you have to remember? Okay, that's his biological father. Okay? His biological father, okay? Not Jeannie's, not Mary's. Okay? And he had Alzheimer's. He still does, and he's been going down from day one. So he tries to convince Dad that, and he tries to turn the narrative. Classic, absolutely classic,
and sick.
Well, but here's again, let's dovetail that into it's recorded. You know, wait, good job, way to go. Okay,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
you know.
thank you.
Can you see?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, see the attorney going, Exhibit 4273, please, Your Honor. I'd like to admit that into evidence. Okay. You know,
I'd like to play an audio tape of the man confessing to every crime, and then we can all go have lunch and then go home.
right. So that's just one side of the equation. And by the way, remember that those two trains separated early on, and you can explain, to your audience what I mean by that later on, right? So
Absolutely. And Vet Girl says here, national funded task force should be developed, combining Ellie and CPS with no stat of limitation. I mean, that would be unbelievable. That is a great idea. The problem is just the limited resource, and that's another thing though. Like, another conversation for another day. I think that we need to put more resources into protecting our children, a lot more. And
absolutely.
I don't know that many people that would disagree with that unless you're, have bad intentions with victims, but children just aren't protected in the way that they should be, because not all parents are good parents, and not all people are good people. Strangers are, look, I see a kid walking down the street, say a 3-year-old. I'm calling the cops and saying, hey, there's a little kid out here. There's a lot of people that swoop children right up off the street, man. And that's terrifying. That is just a terrifying thought. It just, absolutely. I saw that true crime obsessed Emma on her community post just put up that her daughter was in an abduction situation today. She's okay, but that, I mean, it just happens all the time.
Okay, here's what's happening. Okay, here, and so, and from my study of these guys for the couple of weekends that I've been doing this, okay, what's happening is there is a shift in community values, and the internet has played a major role in that occurring, okay? Because there is, look at some of the names that come in here, not this group here, but look at how people attack other people, and you never know who they are, and they can say or do anything they want about anybody because they can hide behind this idea of you'll never figure me out. Okay, now apply that to predatory behavior, where your intent is to SA as much and as often as possible. Okay, so what has happened is the law has said, oh my gosh, this is coming at us at every direction. Okay? And now what ends up occurring is they embolden themselves. And so the guys like Dodd that you saw back in, when I interviewed that guy in Walla Walla State Prison on death row, see, he was an anomaly back in the day. Okay? But these guys have become emboldened because they're able to have this, operation in their secret life
Right.
that nobody knows, nobody sees it. And, that is very, very dangerous. And so legislators need to, start making laws that say, hey, if these guys did this back then, well, you can bet there's a trail of victims from day one to, day that somebody's in custody. Hang on for a second.
Chris is working the night shift at the McDonald's, and he probably didn't mop the floor good enough, so they're going to make him go mop the floor again. Yeah, say, what are you talking about? I mopped it over there. I did the figure 8 like you told me to. Thumbs up. Are we good? I told you we were good. I did it. You saw what I did. Shh, don't tell him what I said.
I love this guy, Mike. He's the guy who runs the area that we're at. Anyway, he just told me shut the lights off when you're done. I'm like, okay, I love it.
Yeah, that's what I said. You got to finish mopping first.
Yeah, of course I will. I'll clean the fridge if they want me to. Okay.
I was pretending to know what you guys were talking about when you were doing that.
Yeah, I asked him where the snacks were. You got it right there.
Absolutely. Figure 8 when you were mopping on the floor and you had to do a better job.
It's the story of my life. No, but the government's our government has to get it together and say, look, this problem is not going away. It's only going to exacerbate. It's just going to keep doing this. Remember, I was on the research. I coined the terminology, the advent of the white-collar predator, intellectual white-collar predator. I said that in 1993, okay? And we predicted, and it was my, ideas that presented itself and that said, look, we're going to see this. We're going to see this, okay? And man, come 1998, when To Catch a Predator was in and happening on that TV show, Dateline NBC, everybody was like, holy cow, okay, what is going on? And everybody said, look, that creepy guy has to go somewhere because they have to do something. And there's a whole, there's a whole thing behind it, but that's what's happening. And here you mark my words, in the next 10 years, okay, there's already a movement taking place around this country where they're going to say that, pedophilia, okay, meaning attractions to children.
I already know what you're going to say because I know that. I feel that too.
Say it. You say it.
They're going to say
it's like your show.
It's a condition. And yeah. Right. Look, man, we are on slippery slopes.
Yes, we are.
It's amazing how our minds, we think the same. I know that. I think that push has already started.
Oh, it's happening.
And I pray to God that it gets no traction. I mean, because that's even say it is a human condition. Too bad. Too bad. Too bad,
well,
man.
Of all,
you cannot do that. Like, I know. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
No, right? Don't think about what's happening. All right. Think about what we're saying here. Okay. We're saying, well, I'm attracted to A, B, C, or D, right? These guys, they're saying these guys. And by the way, 99% of them, 99.9% is male, are males. Okay. These guys are attracted to A, B, C, or D. Okay. And by the way, it's a condition. So what they expect is society to say, well, you know what? You should understand. You should understand. Okay. If your 4-year-old had not gone to the beach in that bathing suit, I wouldn't have been attracted to her.
Right.
Okay, when we get to that point, we have passed the destruction of the Roman Empire. We are living worse as a society when we get to that point. In even its inception, to think about it up here, just as a society, to say, oh, she's only 5, okay, but
We've
Don's a
heard that.
great guy,
Yeah, we've heard that
right?
before, right?
Right. He's a great guy, Well, really? Really? Okay. Well, I'm here to tell you, this guy will do everything in my power to prevent that in our society for my grandchildren and yours, hopefully. And I know you will, meaning
Oh,
everybody in this chat over here. I know the reason people listen to us is because hopefully we're talking sound, and rational.
I would do anything that I could to make sure that, yeah, I've heard that, scenario being thrown out there a lot. And it worries me because of the progression of the culture that we live in. The fact of the matter is that if that's a condition, then so is murdering people. The same thing with Ted Bundy. Then Ted Bundy had a condition, but guess what Ted Bundy got? He got the chair. Okay. You can do things in this life that maybe, maybe Ted Bundy couldn't control himself. Oh, well, sorry, buddy. You don't get to be here anymore. If that's cruel and unusual, whatever, get over it. Okay. I get it, man. I get the fact that people want to make excuses, but you cannot just have people roaming around the streets that are willing to hurt normal people and children. I don't care. You can call it a condition. You can call it psychotic behavior. You can call it whatever you want. I could care less. We got to call it what we call it. Okay. It is what it is. And if that's a condition, then so is being a serial killer. But are we going to make those same rules for them? I certainly hope not. Yeah, man, you really, I've thought about that and it's always bothered me, that really, that whole, and like you obviously bothers you too. Because you can see the writing on the wall. I mean, and I just hope we do not fall for that. Just, it's too far. We've gone, because you cannot unring that bell either. You just can't.
No, when we have a society that comes to a condition, all right, and this is my personal opinion, of course, right? When we have a society that says, well, we just, they are what they are, okay, then all the research for eternal, as long as it's been going on, i.e. the way people live, okay, that's never been one of those that said, anybody under 18 is up for grabs.
Right.
Okay? But, and there's social changes that impact that decision. I'll give you a perfect example. In like some of the southern states, at the age of 16 and even as young as 13, they make medical decisions on their own. Okay? Now, how do I know that? Because not long ago, about a year ago, Dylan was involved in an auto accident. It was a rollover in my truck. They took him to the hospital, and because COVID was happening, Karen and I couldn't even go in the ER. Okay? So he made medical decisions at 16. Okay. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not going in. That's my son. I'm going, boys. Okay. And they literally said, "You're not coming in." And they discharged him with a signature on, "Oh, by the way, here's all the things that happened, Dad, Mom."
Wow.
Okay. In fact, Karen will tell you, she told me, "Go back to the vehicle, get back in our," we had another car. She says, "Get back in the car." She says, "You're going to go to jail and you don't want that." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I don't want that." Well, come to find out, we learned, okay, that these kids at that age can make medical decisions in this state for other reasons.
Yeah, I know what other
And
reasons you're talking.
I'm not going there. Okay.
Sure.
And I was
fine,
like,
yeah.
so, my son gets in an automobile accident. He was broadsided. Okay?
So are you telling me
And
Dylan wasn't pregnant?
I'm not going there. Okay. But see, those decisions led to these decisions.
I
Okay,
understand. Yeah.
as a society. Okay.
Right.
So what's going to happen is somebody's going to say, "You know what? This pedophilia thing, yeah, it's a condition." Okay. Well, how do you get to that condition? Because I can tell you, if I can tell you how they get there.
Mm-hmm.
It's learned behavior.
Mm.
And I know what drives it. Fantasy. Well, how do you get the condition of a fantasy?
You feed it.
We could go there too. We can keep going, right?
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, that's why I always kick on this. We register, and we register these guys because eventually the fantasy becomes boredom. And when boredom comes into play, we end up creating a society of Wesley Allen Dodds. And that condition no longer exists because they're killing our kids for essay gratification. Okay. That's my study. And I've been doing it since 1991 is when they sent me to the first training. So whatever that calculates out to. And that's why I went over and interviewed Wesley Allen Dodd. That's why I've interviewed a lot of different guys. That's why, Brandon Wilson. You know what a lot of people don't know about the Matthew Checkie murder when you see him demonstrating on me. After that murder, he went back to a hotel and turned on P for 2 hours and recharged his fantasy. And he told me in another part of that interview, I had to go do it again because I was hyped. Okay.
Wow.
But all that hype was driven by SDA, sexual deviant behavior, right? I call it SDB on my channel, but that was his drive. That what drove him. And if you haven't seen that video, go watch him. Okay. He was reliving how he took that sweet little boy's life on me. And then he turns, later on in that interview, but I didn't put that piece up. He tells me, "Yeah, I run back to the hotel and I spent about 2.5 hours on P." I said, "You've got to be kidding me," in my head. He says, "Yeah." And then I got all charged up and I had to go do it again. But I just didn't want to leave. There were too many cops.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead.
No, keep going. It's crazy.
No, that's all right. It went before a jury and they said, "Get this guy off the earth." And they they gave him the death penalty.
Well, yeah. like another thing that, we can, you kill a bald eagle, you go to prison for a really long time, longer than essaying a child. I have nothing against bald eagles. At sometimes your hair looks very fluffed like one. And I don't know why they're called bald eagles because they're anything but bald. They're actually, they have very they have fluffy hair.
You're crazy.
But yeah, the laws have to absolutely be changed to protect our children. And, you couldn't have said it any better, Chris. And you're always a great guest. And thank you so much for making time tonight. I know that you have some dishes and a floor to mop. Make sure when you get the bar mats that you put them up over the fence and hose them off. You want to get the limes out of the circles. Okay. You know how to do it, but thank you so much for being here. Everybody,
thank you, Josh. As
appreciates it. And Have a great evening, and we'll talk soon, Chris.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yes, we do.
Have a great night. Hit that button. See ya.
Please do. Thank you, guys. All right. Well, we've come to the end of our journey tonight. What a great show that was.
Yeah.
Chris is the best. Thank you guys so much for everything. Your super chats, super stickers, questions, liking, subscribing, being here. Thank you so much. Always a good conversation. It's The Lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. What more can I say? Thank you for making this part of your day. You guys are great. Thank you. I know it's illegal, but if they're branded in the face somehow, everyone would know to look. I love that. That is hilarious. I know it's illegal, but I'm all about. I'm for that. That's great, Mimi. That's hilarious.